Welcome back, everyone, to Fuhrreich, the Legacy of the Great War. This time, we're going to be looking at the 0.2 Rodina is calling update. Rodina, yes, because of course, we are gonna look at new Soviet Union. So Soviet Union isn't the only thing that got changed in this Fuhrreich update. We also have a few more things. Now, in case you have not seen this already, the Czech state exists, and the Slovak Republic also exists. So, yeah, Zapadoslavia, the badass little Western Slavic thing, doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of sad, TBH. And, yeah, so that's something that's new. So obviously these two things are new. Now I'm just trying to find the patch notes in the background, so don't be scared. Anyway, Belarus and Ukraine now exist. They do not they're not SSRs anymore, although there is a Baltic SSR. And there's obviously the two other Baltic people. The Mountain Republic is not an SSR anymore. It is just a conservative separatist state. Georgia is still its own thing, and Azerbaijan is also its own thing. Trans-Caspian government still exists. The Russian Far Eastern Republic still exists, and they've changed around China a bit. There is now Jili clique over here under HOI4, so a bit of the KR, China update feels over there. KMT government is now a little bit different, Yunnan clique a bit different, but we're gonna take a look at them in a bit. Let's jump in as the Soviet Union. As you can see, there is a very interesting leader who you start off as. Actually, hold on. Yeah. So, what did they change, essentially? Now, effectively, they have completely revamped the Soviet Union, and, yeah, well, well, this will be useful. So there's a few leaders that you can have. So, like, it used to be that the Soviet Union used to be, libertarian or collectivist, socialist, and by the way, the collectivists have been renamed socialists, and the national collectivists are still national collectivists. The libertarians are still libertarians, but yeah, collectivism has been renamed to socialism, and there's still no portraits, which pisses me off, but whatever. Okay, here we are. So that's the patch notes, and they've added new focus tree for other countries. Also, Japan has a new focus tree that we're going to take a look at in a bit. The Jili and Fengtian cliques have a focus tree. Our crumbling industry, our mighty military. Yeah, of course, you know, they need to... They're actually the Friends of Japan, which I kind of like. Not that it makes the most sense that it isn't Manchuria, but I kind of like how, for once, it is not Manchuria. That's Japan's little, whatchamacallit, foothold. Although it does seem like demands from Japan, awaken Pan-Asianism, does seem like it is possible for that to be eventually the case. Then there's a couple new focus trees in Europe, such as Belgium, apparently, which, I recognize this. This looks kind of like, the, there was a Belgium mod that someone made that I looked at once. Looks a lot like that. But yeah, there's that. Then there's Switzerland and Iran. Switzerland is... looks pretty normal. break bread with the Italians. Looks like they want to survive. Not a bad idea. And the state of Iran, which can actually go Valkist, I believe. Now, in case you not remember, Fuhrreich is that mod where you have the crazy ideology of the Valkism. So yeah. Iranian irredentism, yeah. You have some issues with the British, as should be the case. Strengthen Soviet-Iranian relations. Progressive regime or conservative regime? Interesting. So yeah, there's that. Then obviously the Czechs have a focus stream because they're the new great thing, the greatest democracy in Europe. Obviously, then you can remake Czechoslovakia, obviously, because like the whole lore is that Czechoslovakia was created like in our timeline, but it fell apart at some point. So you can remake Czechoslovakia, and oh yes, you can do the second Czech Revolution. Found the UCSSR, of course. UCSSR, United Czechoslovak Socialist Republic, something maybe, or Socialist Republics. How great! Yeah, you can also have a nationalist takeover. Welcome back the Slovaks, or continue with the military junta. Then there's the British East Indies that actually got a focus tree, and now, yeah, their leader is JFC Fuller, who, in case you do not know, is like the British Heinz Guderian in a way, and he was also kind of a Nazi sympathizer in real life, so not the greatest person ever. Although I'm not sure why he's actually here. There's like no... Yeah, like obviously they seized these, like they seized these from the Netherlands. It used to be, I believe, that these were just like under Wilhelmina, the Queen of the Dutch. I believe in Fuhrreich. I'm not 100%, but now they're British. And yeah, you can return to Dutch control. But yeah, you can also become a British colony and industrialize the East Indies. Now, if all of this goes wrong, Insulindia can rise up and does have a focus stream. Then there is the White Russian Far Eastern Republic, which, you know, it does have a focus tree. Prepare against the Soviets. Attacking the Soviets before 1939 will improve the government popularity. You only have to kick in the door and the whole rotten structure will come crashing down. Not 100% sure. So you can apparently just... Oh wow, this focus tree is actually really unique. It's got a bunch of weird things. The Russian Army, Shatilov Plan or Markov Plan, the Army Renewed, the Russian Air Force, the Russian Navy. Yeah, you of course got Vladivostok over here. But yeah, like, obviously if you're the Soviets, which we're going to take a look at now, you probably have something to say about this. Now, okay, so this is kind of... Let's actually play this, right. So essentially, that's the main changes. The only focus tree that has been reworked is the Soviet Union. And they have, like, kind of changed around a few things, I think, in Germany maybe, but, like, nothing really too major. And they've, like, again, changed around a few of the map things and a few balance things, but other than that, like, these are the main new things. So taking a look at the Soviets, start off, well, whatever, let's actually let's play as if we're doing things normally. So, like, the Soviet Union, obviously you've got that glorious flag over there, which is kind of derpy. But yeah, you are the Bolsheviks, aka the Socialists. Now, you're not the National Collectivists, which actually used to be called Vanguardists in the last version of Fuhrreich. You start off with an unbalanced economy, which is bad for your civilian construction speed, good for your military construction speed, and it makes things that are unreliable but cheap. And you have unpopular conscription, which decreases your stability because it's you have given people peace and bread and land, but you haven't given them peace because you're still conscripting them. That's like what the description was saying. So you also have some problems with the consumer goods factories because you're lacking industrialization. You need to industrialize your nation, and you have a political divide because Mr. Lenin over here is keeping everything together, but there's factions that are fighting it out among the party. Okay, the national collectivist, or Nationalsozialisti, literal national socialists, the Bolsheviks, and the libertarians. Now, in real life, these people would have been probably banned from the Bolsheviks, but whatever. You also have a food supply issue. Anyway, you have the glorious great industrialization drive, which will start to industrialize your nation once you are stabilized, aka once you have finished with the political tree. Once you have finished with the political tree, and on the land, in the skies, and on the ocean. Na земле, в небесах и на море. That's like basically like from a Soviet song. Anyway, so that's the military tree. It's pretty bare bones, TBH. It's nothing really too expansive. So you might be thinking, it doesn't look all that big. So, Premier Lenin. All right. So Lenin is currently the most powerful man in the Soviet Union. Oh, okay. Thanks. Big Soviet history. So yeah, it's basically, like, as far as I know, basically the same as our timeline, except that they never took back Belarus and the Ukrainian Republic, and they never managed to defeat the White Guards in the east under Ataman Semyonov. So yeah, like, it's basically like our timeline, the Soviet Union, except, because it doesn't have Ukraine, it's a fair bit weaker, I'd say. But at the same time, they're also more angry. They do have a few unique decisions, which is great. Building the Moscow Metro. I wonder if there's a unique event if the Moscow gets nuked while you have the Moscow Metro. Haha, it's a reference. You also have a lot of oh wow, oh yeah, oh great, oh yes, I love this. So once you're industrialized, you can go ham. You can go, like, seriously ham. You can support the socialists in Spain if you have 2,000 guns. Ain't that amazing? You're never gonna have 2,000 guns. Yeah. So yeah, you have all of this shit. So basically, so Lenin almost got assassinated by a left SR member, probably Spiridonova. This caused them to panic and make peace deals with Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, and make de facto peace with the whites in the Far East. Now, this to me doesn't really make any sense from a lore standpoint, because the reason why the left SRs wanted to assassinate Lenin was because he was trying to make peace. Like, what's kind of hilarious, really, is that by making even more peace, the left SRs would have tried to murder him even more. So, I don't know. That, to me, doesn't really make any sense. The whole idea of, like, the left SR terrorism was to try to push Russia towards a revolutionary war. Now, in case you do not know, you do not understand any of this, the left SRs are like, okay, so let's see if there are the, yeah, okay, so social revolutionaries. So, like, there were two main organizations, let's just call them organizations, that were trying to overthrow Tsarism in early 20th century Russia. There was the Socialist Revolutionary Party, which was an agrarian populist party. So they were all about the liberation of the Russian peasant, and they weren't necessarily Marxist socialist, but they definitely had a lot of pro-socialist like policy background and ideology. So yeah, you can just call them Russian populism is not what we have today as populism, but you get the deal. And then there was the Russian Workers' Social Democratic Party, which eventually becomes the Russian Communist Party, or at least a faction of it becomes the Russian Communist Party, aka the Bolsheviks. Now, the Mensheviks don't seem to play any role in Fuhrreich, so we'll not talk about them. So one of the factions was the Bolsheviks. They thought that by allying the working class, the urban working class, with the Russian peasants, you could create a wide enough power base to hold power as a sort of workers' republic. And through that, build up first a capitalist economy and then a socialist economy, because Russia at this time basically did not have, since it wasn't industrialized, it did not even have a capitalist economy. So in real life, what you kind of have is that the Bolsheviks come into power, and the left SRs, or well, the SRs, the Socialist Revolutionaries, were split between two factions. The right-wing Socialist Revolutionaries, which were the people for Kerensky. Kerensky was a right-wing Socialist Revolutionary, and he's the guy that is in charge of Russia in Kaiserreich. And he was in favor of continuing the Russian Republic, aka the, democratic capitalist republic, and just make some light land reform. The left-wing Socialist Revolutionaries were actually a lot more extremist in their tactics than the Bolsheviks. They just were for full-on terrorism, they were radical democratic, and they were also for the continuation of World War I, only turning it into a revolutionary war rather than a nationalist war. So what they were saying was that Russia, having achieved the revolution after both February and October revolutions, since they allied with the Bolsheviks, they were for the October Revolution, while the right-wing SRs were against the October Revolution. This is already very confusing. But yeah, since Russia had achieved liberation from Tsarism and from capitalism or whatever, it needed to defend this newly found freedom, and also bring the liberation over to the West. Now, some parts of the Bolsheviks were for this, but Lenin was against this because, again, one of the main reasons why the Bolsheviks became popular was because they promised peace, land, and bread. Now, land and bread, pretty simple stuff. You just seize the land of the landlords and redistribute it, which is what they did. Bread, again, if you can organize agriculture better, you can have agricultural production. When it comes to peace, obviously, if you try to turn the war against Germany into a revolutionary war, you're never going to have peace, and you probably cannot win. So they saw that this was not going to work after the newly red army got beaten a bunch by the Germans, and they just decided to make the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. So because of that, the left SRs split with the Bolsheviks, and the Bolsheviks became essentially the single ruling party. So with that out of the way, you now see why the left SRs trying to assassinate Lenin would not push him to make peace with, like, Ukraine or something. He'd probably still try to take them over, but whatever. Anyway, since then, the Bolsheviks have begun fracturing. Lenin's right-hand man, Leon Trotsky, Lev Davidovich Bronstein, as was his real name, has begun formulating his own revision of Leninism that fought for proletarian internationalism, mass democracy, and most important of all, the permanent revolution. This theory is called internationalism. Now, this also I kind of don't like, because Lenin himself was an internationalist. Basically, all socialists before Stalin were internationalists, aka they put the interest of the global working class before the interest of the of any single national entity. Now, Stalin changed this with the socialism in one country, and also a lot of social democratic parties that previously were supposedly for internationalism had already broken with this by supporting their own governments during the First World War. And so after Stalin did this for the revolutionary, the supposedly more revolutionary Soviet government as well, what you have is that a lot of the socialist movements around the world that eventually become successful were actually pretty nationalist in character. For example, China, the Chinese Communist Party, effectively does a nationalist revolution, just like the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese Communist Party, it's mostly just a nationalist revolution, and it's not so much about the internationalism anymore. But apparently here, Trotsky's permanent revolution, they're just calling it internationalism, even though Lenin is also internationalist, but whatever. Meanwhile, high-ranking Bolshevik named Vyacheslav Molotov, who in real life is mostly famous for the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and for also the Molotov cocktail, named after him, by the Finns. Well, it looks like Mannerheim is a derp. Would develop a radically different ideology known as the National Collectivism, and this is basically socialism in one country, or Stalinism, or whatever you want to call it. So this is basically like Stalin's kind of ideology. Now, I wonder if Georgia can still do Stalin's thing. I think yeah, because TBH, they seem to have reworked the left part over here. So yeah, probably new. How great. So yeah, probably Stalin can still try to take over Georgia. Like that. Believing that the Soviet Union must be strengthened internally and that all traitors must be purged. A past comrade of Lenin, Nikolai Bukharin, has become disenfranchised with Lenin's policies and has started to advocate for an ideology that allows workers control of their workplaces as well as the liberalization of the Soviet government. Now, Nikolai Bukharin is another interesting person. In real life, Nikolai Bukharin was one of the main Bolshevik leaders, and he is actually one of the ones that supports Stalin initially. And then he supported Stalin mostly for the economic policies, because Bukharin was more in favor of keeping what was called the New Economic Policy, which was a kind of a semi-liberalized economy that was meant to recover the Soviet economy from essentially World War I and the Civil War, while Trotsky was in favor of forced industrialization. Stalin initially supports the New Economic Policy, then switches around and does the 5-year plans, but, you know, that's for later, and it doesn't matter for Fuhrreich. So yeah, that's Bukharin. A small amount of socialists remain loyal to Leninism, such as Sergei Kirov, who in real life was actually a Stalin protege, who eventually got murdered by Stalin. He was the boss of Leningrad, and he was the leader in the first iteration of Fuhrreich. And there are even whispers of a military coup. But Lenin has great plans for the future. While Lenin has great plans for the future, his health is degrading. Come forth, revolutionaries. So yeah, so what's supposed to happen in a bit is that Vladimir over here will die. Now, spoilers, Kappa. But yeah, essentially, like, yep, here we go. So once you basically finish this, you go, Lenin collapses. Vladimir Lenin's health has been decreasing and decreasing for a long time, but no one expected this to happen this soon. This is a disaster since Vladimir Lenin was the only thing keeping the different political factions from backstabbing and fighting each other, as he was beloved by most members in the Communist Party, regardless of which faction they belonged to. Can only hope that he recovers and prevents another collapse of the Soviet Union, and hopefully ends the political divide between the factions. Oh no. So yeah, here we go. So, you know, here he goes. He passes away. Vladimir Lenin has passed away. This is a disaster. Without Lenin, the internal factions of the Communist Party will now scramble for power. Even worse, many groups opposing Lenin are showing their desire to start up protests, and some have seem to even have the ambition of overthrowing the government. While all this is happening, many people are mourning for Lenin and are hoping that they will weather the storm safely that will follow Lenin's death. So we replace political chaos with political chaos, and we have the Congress of the Soviets in charge. The peasants are revolting. The peasants have always been neglected by the Soviet government because of their petty bourgeois nature. So yeah, here we go. The peasants are uppity. So yeah, as I said, the Soviet state was founded upon the alliance of the industrial workers and the rural peasants, which is why it's a hammer and sickle. However, the peasants were sometimes a bit of an annoyance to the Soviet central authorities. Anyway, it seems like there is a general strike because the Soviet government is neglecting the light and heavy industry and exclusively focusing on the armaments. So yeah, here we go. Oh, King George V is also dead. General strike has started. So yeah, actually, you start off and you have a lot of things to deal with. Railway strike as well. The railway workers have joined the general strike. This is the situation even worse for the government, as now communication between the different states is slowly breaking together. To make the situation worse, some railway workers even started to destroy parts of the railways. This will be very costly and worsen the political storm that we are experiencing at this moment. Part of the Trans-Siberian Railway and other important railway hubs will be damaged. Yeah, as you can see, some of the infrastructure is sustaining damage, so that's not good. Thankfully, Moscow doesn't seem to be hurt. Clashes between the students and the police. So yeah, we have a crippled industry, political chaos, demonstrations in favor of the government. Good. Something finally goes our way. The economy is brought to a halt. Damn. You start off with a lot of bad things happening, it seems. Pravda sales are dropping rapidly. With the Soviet Union in such political and economic crisis, most people don't have the money to buy our state newspaper, the Pravda. Others simply don't buy our state newspaper out of protest. This has left us missing important funds to reinvigorate the economy. Kirov calls for unity and stability. Today, Kirov has held a speech. In the speech, he calls for the unity of the people behind the state in order to end the anarchy and chaos and bring stability to it. So yeah, here we go. People are trying to get the situation under control finally. Rumors of a Trotskyite takeover. Rumors of a planned takeover by Leon Trotsky have been surfacing. This has caused many politicians to be anxious, as Leon Trotsky is extremely powerful, with the opposition of most other politicians being his biggest entrance of gaining power. So yeah, here we go. Trotsky is making his move. Meeting between generals. A meeting has been called between important generals like Marshal Voroshilov. Let's actually get the marshals. So do we have Clement Voroshilov as a field marshal anywhere? Oh, here. Damn it. Yeah, here he is. Mr. Clement Voroshilov. This guy. Pretty important man in the Stalin's regime. Marshal Frunze, who apparently is not a field commander, probably just the head of the Soviet military and the military academies. But yeah, Marshal Frunze, you may know him from Kaiserreich if you choose the autonomist faction of the Soviet Union. Marshal Tukhachevsky, over here, who obviously is not getting murdered by Stalin. And Yezhov. Now, Yezhov, I'm pretty sure we do not have him as a general. Yeah, but he is also a very important figure in Stalin's sort of network. Leader of the OGPU. Since many important politicians and generals attended the meeting, there has been a lot of rumors and discussions regarding the topic, but no information about the meeting has been leaked or released. So you can see sort of the different factions that are forming. So there's the alliance between Molotov, Bukharin, and Zinoviev. Today, Molotov, Bukharin, and Zinoviev. Now, Zinoviev, we haven't talked about him, but he's another important Bolshevik. And he, along with Kamenev, was the one of the main drivers behind Stalin's eventual rise to power. Essentially, the fact that Kamenev and Zinoviev supported Stalin, as opposed to Trotsky, was a very big factor as to why Trotsky could not become the leader of the USSR. Have announced their intention of collaborating in order to prevent a takeover from Trotsky and bringing back stability to the Soviet Union. Even though all of them are very extremely politically, they are united in their opposition to Trotsky. So yeah, okay, they're all dislike Trotsky. The strikers cave in. Okay. They were not able to uphold the strike. While they're still opposing the government, the end of the general strike is a great help in ending the chaos. How great. How great. The Soviets endorse Kirov. Now, okay, the Soviets. Yeah, so you may notice that our country is called the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't know what the Soviet part actually means. It actually means council, like a city council, or, well, in this case, it is neighborhood, city, factory, regiment, and, I guess, farm councils. And they were the organs of the Soviet government. They were essentially sort of a semi-direct democracy kind of system. And at the national level, these all elected delegates that went into the Congress, the Soviet Congress, which then, of course, was the one that chose essentially the leadership of the Soviet Union. The Soviets have endorsed Sergei Kirov. So essentially, these are all the different little councils. All their delegates are endorsing Sergei Kirov as their preferred prime minister of the Soviet Union. The reason for their endorsement were Kirov's strong following of Lenin's ideas, from which the Soviets are highly profiting from, as the libertarians want to give control to the workers and the national collectivists want to implement a planned economy. So essentially, what's happening right now is that the libertarians would want to delegate extra control to the lower levels of the Soviet system, while the national collectivists would want to centralize everything. So the middle ground candidate is Kirov, apparently. And that's the socialist ideology, you know, just continuing on with the system as it is. The fate of the Soviet Union. So 23rd of February, 1946. The Soviet Union has had no real leader. This has caused the situation to escalate dramatically. Because of this, there have been whispers of dissent and coups, with the meeting between important generals making people worried that they are planning a military coup. So Sergei Kirov has got the chance of becoming the new premier, but the workers might oppose him because of a strong following of Lenin's ideas, which most workers oppose, apparently. Then there are Bukharian Molotov and Zinoviev, who have formed an alliance, binded together by their opposition to Trotsky. Now, there's three options. An emergency triumvirate is established to prevent Trotsky from seizing power. So this is the Bukharian plus Molotov plus Zinoviev. Apparently here it's called Trotsky, but there's a reason for that. It's actually a mistake. Or you could have Marshal Tukhachevsky and the Loyal Red Army detachment march on the Congress. So to protect the Soviet Union from a Trotsky takeover, Marshal Tukhachevsky leads a Royal Red Army detachment to the Congress. Chairman Kalinin, who is the head of state of the Soviet Union in real life, apparently here too, and whose like namesake city today is Kaliningrad. In case you do not know, Königsberg over here, it's called Kaliningrad after Kalinin. I believe Mikhail Kalinin, something like that, is placed under house arrest as Tukhachevsky declares himself as emergency premier and Mikhail Frunze as chairman. Or you could have Lenin's wife reveals a letter from Lenin stating Sergei Kirov as his preferred heir. So the way you get Kirov, let's actually save the game so that I can go back and show you the different outcomes. Let's just call it like the Congress, even though it's not a Congress. So first up is the Triumvirate takes power. Second up is the military coup for Tukhachevsky. Third is the whatchamacallit. It is Lenin's wife reveals a letter which ends up with Sergei Kirov. So let's get this first. So this is a reference to a real-life thing called Lenin's Testament, political testament, which is a document that allegedly was dictated by a moribund Lenin. Essentially, he couldn't write anymore because of his like health problems. So he dictated it to his wife, and apparently was kind of like, you could say, covered up by Stalin because it was very critical of Stalin. And yeah, so it would have essentially not really solved the leadership problem, because Lenin's will didn't really name a successor, but you know, it still would have been a big political blow to Stalin had it been revealed. So anyway, Kirov is the new temporary premier. Sergei Kirov has become the new temporary premier after Lenin's wife, who, by the way, is called Nadezhda Krupskaya, revealed a letter from Lenin which stated that Sergei Kirov was his preferred heir. While he won't be the new premier until the 26th Congress, which will happen in a bit, which will take place next year, has taken place. But it will help the Soviet Union to regain some sensibility now that they have a leader again. So here we go. He has the trait called the Sun, probably like the political sun, plus 5% stability. So here we go. Letter of the 22 changes the national focus tree to Soviet focus Kirov. Here we go. So that's Kirov. Premier Kirov. Gain support from the libertarians, increases Kirov's support by 3. Now you do seem to have unique mechanics. How great. However, I don't see the support thing anywhere, but whatever, that's great. Gain support from the workers, gain support from national collectivists. So he's compromising between everyone. Support of the soldiers, of the peasants. Status quo upheld. So that's when you win the power struggle. Strengthen workplace democracy, enlighten the workers, ban factions, which is great. Lenin did want to do that himself IRL. Strengthen the OGPU, aka the, like, it's kind of like the predecessor of the KGB in a way, and the successor of the Cheka, in case you know that name. Support voluntary collectivization, start a land reform, and self-management. Now, once you complete all of this, you're going to get, I think, the stabilization, and then you can do the great industrialization drive. Now, I don't believe there's anything else that you can do with Kirov. Yeah, okay. Anyway, apparently there's actually a bug, and there's supposed to be a power struggle between... like, if you choose this option, there's supposed to be a power struggle between Kirov and the libertarian leader, Alexander Shlyapnikov, but it isn't in Fuhrreich right now. So if you choose that option, you're going to go Kirov. Or if you take a look at the Fuhrreich subreddit, there's a post where there's actually an event ID that you can fire to get Shlyapnikov. But I'm not going to do that because, you know, whatever. Anyway, the other two options, let's take a look at them very quickly, and then I'm going to end the video. By the way, I will be making a playthrough on this, so if you have any suggestions for it, do type it down below in the comments, and stay tuned. Anyway, Marshal Tukhachevsky and a loyal Red Army detachment march on the Congress. So let's see what happens with this one. So here we go. Marshal Mikhail Tukhachevsky is going to come in. Tukhachevsky storms the capital. Mikhail Tukhachevsky has stormed Moscow, our capital, and declared a state of emergency. He was accompanied by a few of his most loyal troops and some of high-ranking generals, some of them were Marshal Voroshilov and Marshal Frunze, and Yezhov, the leader of the OGPU. This event has shocked many, even though there were some hintings. The biggest one was the meeting between important generals and Yezhov. That doesn't sound good, so here we go. He is the soldier that has more support, and he is pretty scary over there. Kalinin has been arrested. Today, Chairman Kalinin has been put under temporary house arrest, with Frunze serving as the temporary chairman. Gains event divisions are deserting. Ooh, so it looks like you have a lot of problems. Anyway, economy recovers. After a while, it is necessary. Nearly all divisions have deserted in favor of the opposing politicians, but the lack of coordination and distrust between politicians means that the deserters are not able to suppress the military coup. But if they will be able to organize themselves, they will pose a serious threat to Tukhachevsky. Legacy of the March Coup. Oh, we have a bunch of demilitarized zones. Yeah, look at that. Cannot enter a lot of provinces. So yeah, here we go. We have the March Coup, and here we go. So, okay. Okay, I see. So basically, you're gonna be spending a lot of time pacifying your own country, and this is a bit like in Kaiserreich. You have Argentina, where at the beginning you have to pacify everything. So anyway, so this is something that's going to take a long time to do, but after it's done, after all this is done, so it removes the political divide. The tree will be loaded for a new political focus tree. Now, I don't think I want to really like cheat to get in there because it would probably break the game really quickly. But the three possible leaders are Tukhachevsky, you know, just like this. You can just stay as Tukhachevsky, and yeah, just continue doing your thing. Then another thing that you can do is you can have two national collectivist governments, one of them under Yezhov and another one under Voroshilov. And all these depend on what happens once Frunze dies, Mikhail Frunze, who is gonna die eventually. Anyway, the two national Bolshevik, or whatever, not national Bolshevik, national collectivist governments. Essentially, Yezhov is basically Stalin, while Voroshilov, apparently it's military focused, so it's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a military dictatorship kind of thing. And so yeah, so that's that. And then going back, there's the last option, which we're going to take a look at right now. Now, the last option is the Triumvirate. And that results in like the more, I guess, straightforward and you know, these people are all from like the party establishment in a way. Like this is the more straightforward option, really. So yeah, the Triumvirate takes over. The motherland needs you. The Soviet Troika has been formed. Molotov, Bukharin, and Zinoviev have created a Troika in order to block Trotsky from seizing control of the nation. So Molotov exiles Trotsky to Alma-Ata, divisions in the Troika. So Alma-Ata actually is all the way over here. So Trotsky's being sent a long way away. Now this is actually something that historically was done to anti-Stalin dissidents. They kind of sent them in Central Asia, which is kind of like the Soviet version of the Wild West. And they just kind of sent them there and let them work like plowing cotton or whatever, so that they couldn't be like dangerous or whatever. Happened actually to basically thousands of party members during Stalin's period. Anyway, divisions in the Troika. So the leaders of the Troika, despite coming together on friendly terms, began to fight endlessly. Each of them has a different vision for the future of the Soviet Union. Molotov plans for the rapid industrialization and collectivization of agriculture, while Bukharin wants an end to the bureaucratization of the Soviet economy and the democratization of the nation. And finally, Trotsky envisions the furthering of the industrialization and reduction of the bureaucracy for the Soviet Union. So you can kind of see what's going on over here. Bukharin is in favor of sort of liberalizing and simplifying both the bureaucracy and the economy. Trotsky wants to industrialize so that he can use the Soviet economy as kind of like a, you could say, kind of like a sledgehammer to help with the liberation, the military liberation of the West, and sort of exporting the revolution. While Molotov, who wants to do essentially what Stalin wanted in real life, aka do a kind of socialism in one country system, he wants to strengthen the Soviet economy so that, with centralized control, so that it can face off against Germany and strengthen his own power base. and also strengthen the bureaucracy so that, again, his internal power base can be built up. And that goes hand in hand with the heavy industrialization. While these men bicker and plot, the fate of the Soviet Union and the revolution hangs in the balance. So here you see the people that you can elect. So let's actually do another save so that I can show you the different outcomes. So Molotov is the first option that you get. Here we go. So yeah, you have the Soviet Troika power struggle over here, where you have all your influence stuff. And essentially, you need to increase your support, and eventually you can proclaim Vyacheslav Molotov chairman. Apparently, chairman. Apparently, Molotov is more than one person. So you have the Soviet Congress votes Molotov as the sole chairman of the USSR. You need 80% congressional support, 50% military influence, and less than 75% corruption to take this decision. So campaign against government corruption, that's gonna decrease your corruption. Political. So let's actually just go through all the decisions, which I'm guessing are gonna be similar for everyone. So lobby for military support gains military influence. Appoint loyal officers is military influence and corruption, obviously. Bribe politicians, congressional support, corruption. Expel dissidents, congressional support and corruption again. But you need 40% congressional support. Here you need 20% corruption. Public speech in Congress. Okay, so basically what you want to do is expel. Okay, so if you have military influence, you can expel them. If you have corruption, you can bribe them. But if you have too much corruption, you cannot be proclaimed chairman. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. What about the other two guys? Do they have any different options to take over the government? And then once you are proclaimed chairman, you have the new focus tree. Anyway, Nikolai Bukharin asserts his influence. Let's see. Come on, Nikolai Bukharin. Let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, seems pretty much to be the same. And then there's the last one, aka Grigory Zinoviev. Now he is he's a bit more complicated than the other two. Now Molotov and Bukharin both become the leader once you win. So that's straightforward. You're choosing your future leader. Zinoviev, however, apparently... Okay, so you can do... Oh, apparently you start off with more corruption as Zinoviev. Yeah, instantly you have corruption rising. So apparently also these things increase your... actually, maybe all these guys have different... Yeah, it seems like they have different levels of support. Anyway, so like... Yeah, as you can see... over there, it's kind of spoiling it. So Zinoviev, even though he was part of the Troika to limit Trotsky, apparently he makes a coalition with Trotsky. And so by picking Zinoviev, you are essentially picking Trotsky. So if you want to pick Leon Trotsky, you're going to be wanting to go with Zinoviev. So let's actually see if we can win. Lose 10% congressional support, gain 10% corruption. Political campaign, gain 15% congressional support. Alright, so we need 80% congressional support, 50% military influence. Okay, so we're going to need a lot of military influence. End of the political chaos. Well, that's great. Yeah, we're going to need to use our political power very carefully. Molotov exiles Trotsky to Alma-Ata. Oh, well, okay. So that's less political power. Molotov and Bukharin conspire with the military. Oh, so you actually get events that have consequences. Okay. Damn, actually looks to be pretty bad, pretty difficult playing as Zinoviev. France and Entente formally recognized the Soviet Union. Oh, thanks, I guess. Capitalist pigs. Wait, what? Successful negotiations in India? Are you kidding me? Okay. Corruption is now a thing of the past. Oh, well, that's great. Anti-corruption measures are paying off. Oh, okay. Well, apparently we both did the same thing. Anyway, now our corruption's lower. Oh, but that means that we cannot bribe people anymore. Isn't that bad? Bukharin and the left communists meet in Oslo. Oh, the left communists. Okay. These left-wing communists have always been an infantile disorder. Okay, that's a reference to a Lenin book. Anyway, the left-wing communists are... Okay, it's a bit difficult to explain just right off, just normally like this, but essentially they are people that are very much in favor of... very much in favor of the Soviet system in all of its facets. They're both against like bureaucratization and also against allying with like tactical alliances with other parties. Anyway, Molotov presents national collectivism. Molotov has proposed to adopt his ideology, national collectivism, as the state policy. Zinoviev and Bukharin strongly opposed this idea. He proposed what? You get Trotsky's internationalism. Japanese spy arrested by British Admiralty. Yeah, here we go. Envisions a rapid industrialization, reduction of the bureaucracy, and expansion of the workers' democracy. But Trotsky is still exiled at Alma-Ata, resulting in his idea falling on deaf ears. Factionalism has gripped the Union. Well, isn't that bad? Anyway, it would take, I think, too long to actually win over here. I always love this, how the Portuguese are kind of derpy. Also China. I wonder how it is. One day I'll take a look at it. But yeah, I think I'll be ending the episode right now. You know, what's kind of sad also is that... God damn it. Yeah, oh, okay. Apparently our Libertarian Party has been renamed the Russian Communist Party Left Communist Faction. And he is the Fuhrerist. Okay. You know, what's kind of sad is that the KMT government does not have a unique focus tree. So, you know, if you want to make China great... Wait, the Zhang Council? What the fuck? Okay. Not developing into a state of complete chaos. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, and as you can see, okay, here we go. So Trotsky and Zinoviev form a united front. Trotsky and Zinoviev have formed a united front. This has effectively allowed Trotsky to enter the power struggle and give Trotsky the chance to become the new premier of the Soviet Union. A scheming traitor. Anyway, so now we can continue doing our thing. However, the Guanxi clique has declared war on the Guangdong clique, the Guominjun clique. Okay! Okay, now that's interesting. Okay, I guess we need to take a look at one more thing before we go. I love this so much. Okay, so Guanxi clique, you have Li Zongren. Guangdong clique, Wang Jingwei. Are you kidding me? Chiang Kai-shek, Feng Yuxiang, and Hu Hanmin. Okay. So, you know, this is kind of weird, actually, because the Kuomintang government has apparently been revolted against by the Guanxi clique, the Guangdong clique, who are under Wang Jingwei, who historically was an opponent of Chiang Kai-shek, and eventually became a Japanese collaborationist, but before he was to the left of Jiang. However, here Jiang is with the left KMT. He's the socialist government. Social democratic government. Whereas here, Wang Jingwei is a liberal. Okay. So apparently he's more of the KMT, like center-right, in a way. Or center-left, more like. Then there's the Guominjun clique. Now, the Guominjun are like the National People's Army, in a way, kind of thing. And they were led by this guy, who was also called the Christian Warlord. And here, the National Revolutionary Army. Now, historically, what was called the National Revolutionary Army was actually the army of the nationalists. So I'm not sure, is this supposed to be like a faction of the army? Anyway, it's in Shanghai, and Hu Hanmin, aka a leader of the KMT right wing, is the leader. Anyway, so that's pretty great. You have a civil war in China. A big-ass civil war in China. So China has been thoroughly warlordized, as you can see. How interesting. How interesting. Anyway, if we were to continue playing with this, eventually we'd be able to proclaim Trotsky the chairman and get the Internationalist focus tree. So anyway, I'm going to be ending this video, which has gone on for way too long already. So I definitely want to thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. In the next few days, stay tuned for some more Fuhrreich action. Now, I myself, of course, you tell me down in the comments, I myself am thinking of playing as Trotsky, but, you know, change my mind if you want to see someone else. So yeah, see you soon, have a good day, and yeah, take care.